All right. Well, I am Jeff Sedlitz with Family Tree Financial Group, along with, you want a drum roll?
This is Bill O'Leary from Legacy Planning Law Group, an estate and trust lawyer.
Yes. And so we wanted to talk a little bit today and have a conversation about some of the big issues that affect business owners and uh, along the lines of succession planning and business continuation and things of that nature. I know, we kind of work together on the legal side of things. Bill takes care of drawing up agreements and documents, and we help on the funding side of things with Family Tree. So, we'll share some ideas with you, and hopefully some of this is relatable to you, and you can see yourself in this scenario that we're going to paint for you. Bill.
Yeah, well, thanks, Jeff. And Jeff is right that we work very closely together with these sorts of engagements, if you will, and they're focused on a business owner and focused on putting together a plan in order to pass on the business. Okay, and whether that's passing it on to, let's say, a member of the family, maybe a member of the family that is working in the business, maybe not. Maybe it's not a family member, but it's a key employee that the business owner doesn't really just want to sort of die in their boots, but they want something to pass on. Well, that takes planning well in advance. And again, Jeff and I work closely because I sort of focus more on the legal side, and Jeff focuses more on what we call the funding side. And we'll explain more what that is, because you can have the best business succession plan in the world, but if you don't have a way to pay for it, it's really not going to work. And so I guess I will throw this question out to you.
Sure.
I'm sure you've never seen it. The business owner that is great at running their business. Maybe they've been working it for 25, 30, 35 years, started from very small, and now they're quite successful. They can make their widgets great, but their nose is to the grindstone, and they rarely come up for air looking into the future, thinking, gee, I can't be doing this forever. Is there a way that I can create value to pass on to somebody else? I'm sure you've never seen that, Jeff.
Well, unfortunately, I haven't. Usually it's me that brings up that kind of conversation, because it's probably about 70% of business owners have no sort of succession plan in place at all.
Mm-hmm.
And, when we talk to them, we bring it to the table, and, so many times we'll have that conversation, and the business owner thinks, well, my business is my retirement, or I own the building and that's my retirement. And none of those things are really a retirement plan. They could be part of the overall picture, but it's not a plan. There's nothing there. And, if I'm an employee and I work somewhere and I decide to retire, I'm the only one pretty much affected. Maybe the business will be hurt by losing me because I'm so great. But for the most part, it's just me. But if I'm a business owner and I have 33 employees and I decide to retire, everyone's affected. Those
Mm-hmm.
33 households are all affected, not just mine. And all of the local businesses depending on them and depending on that income coming in to support those local businesses. So to have a succession plan, to have someone maybe that I can pass the baton to is so key. So that's why I love to have that conversation with business owners. Let them know this doesn't happen automatically. We have to design it. We have to structure it. We have to have a conversation about it. Find that key employee, as you mentioned, that might want to take over the business. And usually the reason that in the cases where they don't believe they can take over the business, not because they don't want to, but they don't believe they can afford to. They don't believe they can
Right.
afford the buyout money, right?
Exactly right.
And so as long as we know that and we can identify that person and we can do proper business valuation and come up with a sum that makes sense, as long as we have enough time is a key element there, we can make the funding happen.
Mm-hmm.
And in the agreement that you structure, everyone's protected. We know it's going to happen. And that's a great way to go about business. Everyone's protected. The business stays in business.
Right.
That business owner gets to retire. The key employee gets to take on a business that, if he started from scratch, probably would never have happened. So it's a great scenario. But yeah, we have to have those conversations all the time.
That's right. That's right. And And of course, you mentioned time. You mentioned time. And so I'm sure you have encountered the situation where a business owner will come to you and say, well, a light bulb has gone off. It's now time for me to put some sort of succession plan in place. And so then you'll ask the question, great, what's your timetable? 6 months from now. And hopefully you don't laugh like that, but that is clearly not enough time. That this typically is a multi-year process involving sort of multiple professionals. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. We talk to people in depth about the triangle. I always refer to as a triangle, the 3 points, the three professionals that should be involved in most of these structures and designs that we put in place. And someone like yourself, someone like myself, and typically a CPA. So if they have one that is really in the weeds on their financials, we want to have them at the table too. But I always do an outside business valuation to get proper numbers, and we don't charge for that service either, so we can get the true numbers and base our recommendations on that.
Good, good. So I thought what I'd do is to sort of dive in just a little bit and talk about a very important sort of legal tool that is used as part of good succession planning. And then as I get into that, sort of throw it your way to talk about sort of the ways to pay for it. So the most common legal tool that's used is something called a buy-sell agreement. And then perhaps people that are watching this now have heard of a buy-sell agreement, but they may not exactly know what is a buy-sell agreement. So it's basically an agreement between owners of a business, or it can be between a single owner and a key employee. But let's take the scenario, you've got two owners, two partners in the business. It's an agreement whereby the owner that is departing, will have an arrangement already in place with the owner that remains to sell the departing owner's share of the business to that remaining owner, And so what it does is it does a couple of things, some sort of advantages. Number one, for the departing owner, again, they could be departing because they're retiring, maybe they've died, and so forth. It provides sort of a ready market for that ownership interest, which may be in a closely held business, and there's no publicly available market. It's not like you can go on the New York Stock Exchange and sell that stock. You've established a built-in market for the business. It's also a way to provide liquidity for that purpose, and we're going to get into that. Jeff's going to talk about that. And what it will do is it will relieve the family of the departing owner of the need to work in the business, and it also reduces sort of the chances for dispute. So those are the benefits to the departing owner. To the remaining owner, the owner that remains, it provides continuity of ownership and continuity of management. Again, there is a liquidity component. There's a way to pay for the departing owner's, let's say, stock or interest in the business, and it provides some certainty as to price in the terms of that. Now, and I talk about a departing owner. Well, again, how can an owner depart? Well, an owner can depart laying this way, they've passed away, or maybe they become disabled. And that sort of involves sort of a different funding mechanism. Maybe they've retired, maybe they've gotten divorced, or maybe they want to sell to a third party. And that's sort of a whole different animal that I'm really not going to get into a whole lot. There are different types of buy-sell agreements, and I'm not going to get down in the weeds, but there's something called an entity redemption, where the company redeems the stock. There's another called a cross purchase, where the remaining owner will buy the departing owner's interest. And why you do one over the other depends a lot on tax issues and the particular tax objectives of both owners. And then there's something called a wait and see, sort of a blend of both. Now, Jeff, it's great to have a buy-sell agreement in place where the remaining owner has to buy out the departing owner's stock, which again provides sort of money for the estate of the departing owner and, let's say, a surviving spouse. But how is the remaining owner going to pay for it? How are they going to pay for it?
Well, that's often the issue, right? Especially if we don't get to them in advance. And there's 4 or 5 different ways. Most of them aren't the most practical, and and feasible and they don't happen, they can have cash. They can have a sum of money earmarked for that. Chances are, if it's a business, that's probably not the case because that usually requires a large sum of money.
Mm-hmm.
Savings would be along the same lines. They probably wouldn't have that much money in savings. They can borrow, which involves a lot of unknown factors like credit availability and interest rates and the cost of borrowing, being able to repay it if it's coming out of the business. There's a lot of things that have to be considered when you want to try to borrow money.
And by the way, not to interrupt you, Jeff, but how easy or difficult do you think it would be for the owner that remains to go borrow money if, let's say, the departing owner is one of the founders of the business, is integral to the business, has a lot of these sort of customer relationships, and they're gone? Do you think it's going to be harder to borrow money?
Oh, sure. It's obvious. Yeah. If that other party, the remaining partner or soon to be business owner or remaining business owner, if they have a length of time in the business, that'll add to their credibility and their ability to obtain a loan. But certainly it's going to hurt them if that founding member is gone, the one with the relationships, the one with the experience and the industry knowledge and all of those things. Yeah, it's going to be detrimental. They're going to have a significant amount down, excuse me, to even be considered. Usually 20-25% and experience. We could probably find someone to take on that loan, but you're talking about a lot of money.
Sure.
And interest.
Yeah. Well, okay. What about, it'll just be paid out of the cash flow of the business. So the agreement may say that if one owner dies, then the other owner will have to buy out the deceased owner's stock, let's say over a 5-7 year period in installments, and just pay it out of the cash flow of the business. How reliable of a funding source do you think that is?
And this is just my own experience. I think the installment method, which is what we call that, is probably the most commonly used when people don't have a plan in place.
Right.
That's what they think the go-to is. And it's very risky, right? We don't know what the performance of the business is going to be, what the revenue is going to be. And even if we take a 5-year look back, if we're losing that key person, that business owner, the founder, the business face, the next 5 might not look anything like the last 5. So it's very risky, to say the least, for both parties, right? We're taking, if the person taking over the business is going to assume they're going to take money from, well, then they're hurting their income as well.
Sure.
And that other party, the heirs of the deceased possibly, or the retiring owner, they're putting their retirement as well at risk. So it's not the best scenario. The one that we go to most frequently, and I'm a big believer in trading pennies for dollars. That's how the rich get richer. And insurance products allow us to do that, trade pennies for dollars and do that. And we do that all the time in these cases, as often as possible. What we find on the buy-sell agreements that are fully funded, and it's only 25% of the cases are fully funded, and they're funded by insurance. 75%, the remaining 75%, they're not fully funded at all.
Mm-hmm.
That's alarming. You would think, well, some of them have to be fully funded in some way. They're not. So it's alarming. But that's the best way to go about it. The money is available immediately. It's not, there's no interest, there's no taxation. It's a beautiful scenario. And again, it's trading pennies for dollars. The significant issue that I mentioned a moment ago is having that lump sum to buy the business or to buy out the heirs of the business. And here it's all provided to you for pennies.
Right. So sort of walk us through that. So let's say we have a buy sell, and the buy sell will obligate as I call the remaining owner, to buy out the departing owner, whether it's through death or whatnot, the stock in the business. Okay, so it's a contractual obligation to do that, and there is life insurance in place. Again, the life insurance might be owned by the company, it might be owned by the individual partners. They each have policies on the other. Boom, a death occurs. So walk us through the process then. What does the remaining owner do to get the money with the life insurance, and what does that owner do with the money once it's paid out from the insurance company?
So at that partner's death, the surviving partner or each surviving partner, depending on the structure, receives the income tax-free death benefit from the life insurance company
Mhm.
that's owned on that deceased partner. The surviving partner or partners then takes that money, take those proceeds, and buy the partnership's interest from the deceased partner's estate for the purchase price that was agreed upon in the buy-sell agreement that you structured.
Mhm.
And then after we settle the estate, the executor distributes the balance of the estate to the deceased partner's heirs, and we're good to go. And uh, the shares have now increased either 100% if it was a partnership, or the proportion, the ratio, the percentage has increased if there were two or three or four partners.
Mhm. And the nice thing is now, let's say the deceased owner left behind a spouse. He or she doesn't need to have sleepless nights wondering if there's going to be continuing cash flow in the business for, to make that next installment payment. He or she is cashed out right away, right away.
Right.
Probably not somebody that wants to be forced to be involved in the business at all. They just much rather go off and do their own thing. They've got the money, and then it's like sort of a clean slate that the surviving owner has available to them.
Yeah, that surviving spouse typically had no or limited involvement in the business.
Mhm.
What they wanted from the business was the income that it was going to provide, and we're going to provide that in a lump sum. So everyone's like you said, on a clean slate now.
Yeah.
Business owners continue doing what they do, and the heirs now have that money to live their life as they choose.
And imagine if there is no buy sell in that scenario with two owners, one owner dies. And then so the spouse is going to, the estate is now going to own that stock. And let's say it's the spouse is going to be thrust into the situation where they are now a 50% owner, maybe in a business that they were not involved in, may know little about, and have no interest in being involved in. Not only does the spouse have no interest, but the surviving owner has no interest in getting into bed, if you will, into partnership with a spouse that has no knowledge of the business.
Absolutely right. Happens all the time because, like we said, it's about 70% of the time that this stuff hasn't been done.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a huge need. If you're a business owner listening to us today, there's a huge need for you to kind of take inventory mentally. Have I done this? Do I need to do this?
Mhm.
And get in touch with someone. If you work with someone, get in touch with us. Talk to somebody about this.
Right. Good. 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 And as you said at the beginning, it really is sort of it's a multi-year process, and it involves a team of people. You mentioned the CPA, the financial advisor, life insurance professional, the attorney, probably a business valuation person to get them on board so they can arrive at a purchase price, whether that's a set price now or maybe the buy-sell agreement will have that readjusted every year. There's a certain mechanism to make sure that at the time of departure, that a fair price is being paid, and probably a banker on the team as well. So
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons when we talk about time, businesses change, businesses hopefully grow. And what we have in place for a buy-sell agreement, a valuation of $500,000, maybe in 7 years, it's worth $1.5 million. So we need to revise the buy-sell agreement and structure things a little bit differently, update it.
Good. Well, I think this has been a good conversation, and again, I will echo what Jeff says, that if you're a business owner out there and you've been working at your business, just don't walk away from it. Have something to show for it. Put in place a succession plan. At least start the conversation. And again, Jeff and I work very closely on these sorts of things, and we'd be delighted to start that conversation with you. So before I throw it back to you to sort of close it out, Jeff, again, my name is Bill O'Leary. I'm an estate trust and business lawyer with Legacy Planning Law Group in Jacksonville, with an office in Mandarin. Just Google us, Legacy Planning Law Group.
Awesome. And again, I really hope everyone got something out of today's little conversation that we had, very off the cuff, just high level topic that we could really go in depth on for you. But everyone's scenario is a little bit different and very specific to you. So we wanted to keep it high level today. But feel free to reach out, as Bill said. I'm Jeff Sedlitz, Family Tree Financial Group, and same thing. You feel free to visit our website, and we kept it very complicated. FamilyTreeFinancialGroup.com.
There you go. And as I close out all of these sorts of things, go make it a great day and a better world.
Absolutely. Amen.
Okay. Good talking to you, Jeff.
You too, Bill.